Hey everyone. Really pleased and really fortunate to have with me here today Chris Robertson. Chris is a strength and conditioning coach with Rugby Canada, in particular working with the senior women's national 15 squad. He also works at the Rugby Development Academy with a variety of athletes, different ages, and helping them prepare and train for hopefully their future in rugby and physical fitness. So Chris, thanks for joining me here today. Um, why don't we get started with just a little bit about your personal history with fitness and kind of what's led you to your role today with Rugby Canada?
So it kind of all started back when I was my first year of university, and I needed to find a job where I could be able to train for football and as well as make some money. So my dad kind of gave me the idea. He's like, "Why don't you just personal train?" I was like, "Oh, that's not that bad." Like, I was into fitness. Like, I was obviously working out, so I kind of got a few clients, and I kind of started that way. And then what I did that all through university. And then fortunately, I was drafted to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, 11th overall in 2013. And then unfortunately, I hurt my ACL. And then I went through a couple years of like on and off teams. And then in 2015, I kind of made a decision on like, what do I want to do? Do I want to keep pursuing football, or do I want to start a career? So right away, I just started a career. I started my own business, Chris Robertson Training, and then I started training athletes. Then I got into George Brown College as a fitness supervisor. At that point, I was just supervising gym, and I was working with like general population. And it's not something that I was really like too happy about. Like, it wasn't that much fun. Uh, So then an opportunity opened up with the Toronto Argonauts to be an assistant strength coach, and that kind of started my journey. And that was 2016. And then ever since then, things just took off. 2017, I started with Rugby Canada, and I've been here ever since.
Excellent. And so, of course, with you mentioning your history in athletics, and certainly at the professional level, obviously you know what kind of dedication it takes to be interested in your own personal fitness, but then the different programming that's necessary and what it takes to get to that level. Would you say that in your experience, did that influence you in your work and with the programming that you do for your athletes? Can you provide them with that guidance and relate to them based on your personal experiences through university and into the pros?
It's not something that I really lean on. It definitely does help when I'm able to actually demonstrate everything that I'm supposed to be doing or everything I'm getting the athletes to do. But like me being a pro, and it's not something I really talk too much about. Like, it's not. I don't. I like the athletes. I don't. It doesn't need to be about me. It's about the athletes. So if they do ask me questions, then yeah, I will answer. But it's not something that I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, I was a pro, so you need to listen to me or something like that. A lot of kids don't even know I played professional football. It's just, yeah.
Okay. So through university, what program did you take specifically that led you to this point, and what other training or certifications have you had to get in order to be where you're at?
So I actually took a little bit of an unorthodox path to get to where I am today. And I went to school for sociology, actually. So I went through to get a Bachelor of Arts from Concordia University. When I was going into school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. That was the hard part. And then what ended up happening was it was going to take me like 2 years to switch over to kin. So I just kind of just stuck with my sociology degree. And then after a sociology degree, I got my CSCS, which is like a certified strength and conditioning specialist. And then from there, I'm currently doing my master's in strength and conditioning right now to kind of top up my knowledge from a science standpoint.
That's great. Were there any type of requirements or prerequisite that you needed to get your certified strength and conditioning coach?
Yeah, you just needed to have a university degree. But that is going to change in 2030. So if you want to be a strength conditioning coach, you're going to have a Bachelor of Science degree to get into the kin program. So you said this is grade 11?
Yeah, so I'll be showing this to my grade 11 class, but also sharing it with our other phys ed classes. So
Okay, perfect.
amongst
Yeah, just
various
so you
grades, so
know,
some of our junior kids too, something to keep in
2020.
mind.
Yeah. So hopefully they're all graduated before 2030 if they don't do the science route.
Yeah, so definitely just to emphasize that, get into your kinesiology programs just in case, but at that point, by 2030, you're going to have to make sure that you have that kin degree, that science degree, in order to become that certified conditioning coach. Okay.
Perfect. Yep.
Um, what would a typical day look like for you? And again, I know with the variety of jobs that you've been in and the teams that you've trained and athletes you've worked with, there's a lot of variety. But on an average day, what would your schedule look like? And especially now with the way things have changed in these last few months.
So the days that I don't have a training session, my days kind of look like I get up. Um, I don't really start work till about 12-ish, and then I'll read. So after I do my breakfast and all that stuff, I'll do a lot of reading. So my whole goal is I try to get in at least 2 to 4 hours a day of reading. So with the reading, it will come from strength conditioning journals, biology journals, physiology journals, just to kind of brush up my knowledge on the science. And then programming, that consists of a lot of my day. So programming for various different programs. So right now I'm in charge of, I would say, just under 100 athletes I'm responsible for. And then in a given week, I'll write anywhere from 15 to 20 programs. So that's kind of, I just space it out throughout my week. Days that I do training, I just make sure my programs, I just double check my programs, get to the gym, set things up, and then I coach.
Excellent. And so with your programming, how much changes based on the different age groups that you're working with, or certainly a number of your athletes are probably within a specific range and goal set in mind. But how much diversity do you include in your programming, depending on the athlete and the client that you're working with?
Yeah, so everything's based off of training age, biological age as well. So, if someone's new, their program's a little different than someone's old, but like exercise are the same. It's just like the methods in which I use to elicit those adaptations differ. So, someone who has a high training age, someone who's been training for 8+ years, they're going to need significantly amount of more volume for an exercise to get stronger versus someone who's young. They need less volume. So to make it really, really simple, if I have an athlete that is just training with me, doing 2 to 3 sets of 8 reps will get them stronger over time. Someone who has 8+ years of training, I maybe need to do maybe 6 to 8 sets of 5 to 6 reps to get them stronger, plus other assistant exercises. So it all just differs in terms of volume for the most part.
So working with Rugby Canada and their teams and their athletes, are there certain times of year, and how do you adjust that programming for when they're in their competition schedule versus when they're in their training schedule?
So for my younger athletes, all it is really just taking a day away from training. And then for my older athletes, it's like using, again, certain methods to peak them, to make them sure that they're their fastest, their strongest, their fittest at competition time. Um, and that's kind of, yeah, this is the gist of it.
Great. What type of exercises, I guess, do you like to include in your programming that you found that really challenges those athletes? You see a lot of maybe people, if you go to a regular gym, it's kind of the beach workout, bicep curls and bench press. For maybe those that are a little inexperienced or might just kind of be YouTubing things. But as a certified strength and conditioning coach and working with these elite athletes, do you notice that maybe they get bored with some basic exercises, and so you need to push them in the type of movements that you have them do?
No, so basically, you need to understand. Um, you have to, as a strength conditioning coach, you need to make boring fun. So it's about the environment you create, um, and the relationships that you build with the athletes. Just because you are uh, in phys ed or you're in a health unit right now, or you're a professional athlete. A squat is a squat, a bench is a bench, right? In terms of exercises, I like to just think of squat, hinge, rotate, push, pull, sprint, lunge. Those are kind of the foundation of all the basic movements that I do. So the things that you do see on like YouTube and things like that, or those fancy exercises. Again, a lot of it is it's a lot of fluff and just to sell things. And that's kind of, you have to have a good BS detector in terms of what is good and what is not. And not all things transfer. So just because someone's doing a certain special jump or something like that doesn't mean it's going to work for you. The basics is kind of where I lay my hat. So there's nothing really special. Now, where things may differ is in terms of when we get to our specific prep. So like leading up to competition, we're not going to simulate what's being done on the field of play, in the weight room per se, but we're going to work on the muscles that translate to that exercise. So if we take rugby, for example, and we think of a scrum, we may do some specific isometrics where they're going to be in a scrum position and they're going to push against an object to kind of simulate that. But again, that's kind of as fancy as things will get.
Do you incorporate, I guess, different training techniques when I mentioned that in terms of, do you have specific days or workouts that are strength training only, cardio only, agility, the speed, agility, quickness only, or do you mix in a little piece of all of those into the workouts that you program?
So going back to training age and how old you are. So younger athletes, if you're new, you can do everything all at once and you'll still get a benefit. As you get older, a higher training age, you're gonna have to start concentrating on certain variables. So we'll have, there will be a day where it's high output day. So we'll squat heavy, we'll run fast on that day. And then there's other days where we're gonna be like, okay, it's low CNS day, so less taxing on your body. So what we'll do for that day is like you'll do some circuit-based work in cardio or tempos or something like that. And then for the most part, we'll have like different kind of days. So if we have a 5-day week schedule, Monday, Wednesday, Friday will be hard days. Tuesday, Thursday will be easy days. Or we can go 3 easy days, 2 hard days. You can kind of go back and forth. But just making sure that you have enough time in between hard workouts.
Aside from programming and teaching your athletes and the people you work with about how they can work out physically, does your job include addressing other health factors like nutrition, hydration, and things like that?
So I don't go into depth with those topics. So like I have my scope of practice doesn't really involve that too much, but I do know the basics. Okay, make sure you eat enough, but I'm not going to sit here and prescribe diets or things like that. We have nutritionists that we work with that will kind of do that. But I do feel everyone should know some of the basics about nutrition, and I have got a philosophy where it's 80% nutrition and 20% gym. So you can have the best gym workout, structured everything, but if you're eating like crap, you're not going to get improvements in the gym.
That's a great point. And I mean, even outside of our nutrition health units, I think it's something that we always try and keep our students here mindful of, is their nutrition and how what they put into their body is affecting them, certainly on a day-by-day basis, but then especially if they're going to start working out and getting into a more dedicated program, they really need to rely on their nutrition. It's not just what goes on in the gym, it's what goes on outside of the gym, with rest and hydration included as part of that.
Like the biggest thing I would say is like, a lot of young athletes will be like, oh, I need to take this supplement, this, that. But if you just sleep and eat right, you won't need any of those supplements yet. As you do get older as your training age increases, then you move to those special things.
So for athletes that you work with that, like you said, they have a young training age, regardless of their biological age, but focusing here on any new training athlete, what are some common mistakes that you notice when they come to the gym with you and start going through your program?
You'll notice this with boys, or young men, I should say, is they gravitate right away to the bench press. So a lot of guys will go to the gym and they want to increase their bench press. And what they're going to do is, going back to young training ages, they're going to bench, right? And eventually you're going to hit a plateau where your bench does not improve. So they think, okay, I need to do more bench to improve my bench. But there's also those other muscles, the muscles you can't see, the ones in your back, that are really important. So that's one thing I see. A lot of guys don't like to squat. Okay. They'll move to leg press. They'll leg press and bench. So basically they'll have big quads, big chest muscles, but nothing will be balanced out. So that's really, really important. Balance is really important. The more balanced you are, the less likely you are to get injured. Another thing that I see is egos. The weight room is a very humbling place. It can make or break some people. So I've seen people, I can squat this, I can bench this, and then they kind of get crushed by the weight. So young athletes, you should not be maxing out, like meaning a 1 rep max for a little bit. Learn your technique first, okay? Balance out your muscles. Then you can think about moving to that max. So for example, when we have an athlete come into the gym, depending on their age, like I go by grades. So grade 9s, they don't max out. Grade 10s, if you've been training with me for at least a year, we'll push those maximums. Maybe 2, 3, maybe 1 RMs. Who knows? Depending on how the athlete progresses and how they're built. And then that's kind of the gist of it.
Great. Yeah, I think and even thinking back to when you were younger and playing university football, and I was long before you, but I could think back to those testing days in the gym, and coaches are there, players are there, and everybody wants to get that 1 rep max in, and try and show off, and sometimes sacrificing that technique. And even for elite athletes, it's something where if they haven't learned the basics properly, that can cause a lot of damage later on down the road, right? When you're older, if you don't get the technique and the form down early in your training age, then later on when those weights become heavier, you set yourself up for potential injuries.
The good thing is well, if you do things right and you are balancing out your muscles, so you are, to give you an example, when it comes to improving the bench press, I like to use a 2-to-1 ratio in terms of, so however many exercises that you do for the chest, you need to do double for the back. So if you do 3 exercises, 2 for the back, 1 for the bench press, 1 for the front. And going back to, the more balanced out you are, and you do get into compromising positions, so like your technique fails a little bit during a 1 rep max, the less likely you are to get injured because your other muscles are all balanced out. So it's really important to have a really good balance. And I do have a lot of ratios and stuff that I use to help me determine if that athlete's balanced or not.
Perfect. So for the athletes that you work with, as we know, we're not always on our best day. How important is mentally being prepared to go to the gym and show up? Does that factor into the workout? And for you as a coach, it's not like you're just handing them a piece of paper and saying, go at it. How much is the mental work a part of what you do?
The mental aspect is really important. Going back to what I said at 80-20 for nutrition, I think when it comes to mental, physical, just using those 2 comparisons, it's a 90-10. So 90% mental and 10% physical. I've seen many of times where, athletes haven't been in the right headspace and someone will beat them on any given day. But if you saw them in normal conditions, that athlete would lose. So mental is really, really important. You got to be able to get through adversity. And that's the thing about weights. It's not a smooth elevator. It's a really rocky, jagged. So some days, I'm really strong. Some days you're not. So it's being able to fight through that and being mentally prepared for it.
Okay, so I'd be remiss, and this was a question that came in from one of our students. And again, thinking about pathways, we talked about your education and training and how you were able to get into being a strength and conditioning coach. But the nuts and bolts of it, kids want to know what are the paydays like. So just in your experience in dealing with multiple organizations and even just seeing other trainers that would be similar in your pathway, and you talked about going into the public gyms as well, what would kind of be the idea, without getting too specific here, of what someone looking to get into this career path might be looking at in terms of compensation?
Don't go into this job looking for money. That's the best way to put it. You can make the highest paid strength coach in the world gets paid, I want to say $800,000 a year. But then the bottom guy's not getting paid. He's been an intern for like 2 years. A lot of guys, you have to, depending on where you are, the job security is very low. So it's not like a job where someone's not in a position for 15, 20 years. It's not a job where it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to start here at 20 and then I'm just going to work my way up and then, I'm going to retire at 55 or 65 or whatever it may be. It doesn't work like that. You do have to move a lot. So it does require you to think of additional avenues of income because your income is not secured. So basically, in my situation, the whole coaching staff gets fired, a new person comes in, I don't have a job. That's just kind of how it works. So if you're looking at starting, I would say the average strength coach in Canada makes anywhere from, I want to say, $45,000 to $75,000 a year, in that range. That's kind of the gist. And then like the directors are the ones that will go into like the six figures, but like 6-figure jobs. So let me go back actually. Strength and conditioning jobs, there's not many jobs. So basically, if someone gets fired, you more likely than not know who the next person is that got hired. And then it's a knock-on effect. So what will happen is, so Brad, you're at your school. You leave your school to go to another opportunity to do a university. I move into your role. Then, the next guy over there moves into my role. And like, it's a network and everyone knows each other.
Gotcha.
So it's very, very small, very, very small network, and everyone knows each other.
Yeah, and I mean, hopefully, as our students are thinking about what they want to do down the road, definitely you have to have odd jobs here and there. But in terms of a career, you definitely want to find something that you're passionate about and that you connect with. And certainly, physical fitness and your experience, it's definitely evident that it's a passion of yours.
Yeah, like for example, for myself, like I do well in like the private sector. So I do like all online training and things like that. So I have a bunch of athletes that I train, and like that is just like additional passive income that I have in addition to what I do. But it's like majority of strength coaches have that going. They're like, okay, I have this going, that going, unless they're like, they're older, they're more secured in their position. But for the most part, yeah.
Great. So kind of just to finish off with, any words of advice for, again, our students who are coming from a variety of different experiences, both their training experience, whether they've taken phys ed courses in the past where they've been able to get some experience in the weight room or fitness room, or if they're maybe just getting going, maybe they're young in that journey of their own physical fitness and now starting to take a little bit more accountability for that. Any advice for those that are just getting into it, and even those who are maybe along that journey but want to now take the next step?
Um, be patient. Um, Basically, your strength and speed and fitness improve at a really slow rate. It's not something that happens overnight. So, for example, um, it took a year and a half to put 100 pounds on a. There's an athlete I have, a year and a half to put 100 pounds on his squat. So it's like that's not much weight each month, but it's slow, steady progress. Um, I would say get a coach, go learn to lift right off the bat. As soon as you can, go learn to lift. Do not try and take it into your own hands, research things, right? I tell people, if you needed stitches, would you do them yourself, or would you go to the hospital and go to the doctor who knows what they're doing to stitch you up? Granted, you may know how to do it, but you're more likely than not to go to the hospital. All right. When it comes to this, you can really hurt yourself. You can really mess yourself up. I've worked with many kids where I've had to actually fix them. They want to go have a 500-pound deadlift, so they go to the garage and their friends, they start lifting, and then their back, something happens to their back and it pulls. Like, oh, and it's just not worth it. I understand I was your age. I felt like I was young and resilient, could do anything in the world, but you will really get hurt if you do not do things properly. And in addition, with having a coach, you're going to have someone who's going to be able to see your deficiencies, if they're a good coach, the deficiencies, your flaws, and things that you need to work on. So yeah, my big recommendation, get a coach. Learn from your teacher, whoever it is, learn to lift properly before you go on your own. And you could learn to lift, I kid you not, in 6 to 8 months, you could be proficient at lifting, and then you can go on your own. You just got to know what to do.
That's great. Well, thank you for your time today, number one, and then all the advice and sharing your experience on your pathway to being a strength and conditioning coach, and definitely working with elite athletes. But again, your journey, really appreciate it, and thank you for joining me here today.
Thanks.